I watched my friend Marcus sell everything at the bottom. Stocks were down 30%, his account bleeding red, and he couldn't take it. So he sold, then bought back higher months later. Imagine a second Marcus. Same crash, same bad luck, but holding the trash cash every finance video mocks. Did that cash make him poorer or richer? I'll put a real number on it. By the end, you'll know how much to hold and how it protects everything else. But the number only lands once you understand the why. I'm Cole. This channel digs out the human machinery under the money advice everyone repeats. And this is the part most cash advice skips. What one forced sale actually costs. Because odds are someone's made you feel a little ashamed of that cash, like it's the lazy kid in the family. The money not pulling its weight. I want to flip that. Start with the line you've heard 1,000 times. Cash is trash. Don't let your money rot in savings. Always be fully invested. There's a real fact buried in there. Over 30 years, cash absolutely loses to stocks. The long-term stock return is about 10% a year before inflation. Cash, even in a good savings account, is around 4%. Over decades, that gap is enormous, and inflation running near 3% a year quietly cuts what a mattress full of cash can buy roughly in half. So if the question is, should I keep all my money in cash forever instead of investing it? The answer is no. Obviously no. I am not here to tell you cash beats stocks. It doesn't. But that's the wrong question, and the wrong question is exactly how smart people get talked into a bad setup. The question that matters isn't, what does cash return? It's, what is cash's job? Cash and stocks aren't competing for the same job. That's the whole trick. We line them up, compare returns, cash loses, we decide cash is bad. That's like comparing your car's engine to its brakes and deciding the brakes are useless because they don't make you go faster. The brakes have a different job. And the brakes are the only reason you can afford to drive fast at all. Cash is the brakes. Now let me show you the exact crash they prevent, because there's a specific risk that wrecked Marcus. It has a name, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's called sequence of returns risk. Sounds technical. Stay with me. This is the engine of the whole video. Most of us think the only thing that matters about our investments is the average return. Did they go up over time? But there's a second thing hiding underneath, the order the good years and bad years show up in. And here's the strange part. While you're only ever adding money and never forced to sell, the order can't trap you. Crash early or late, you've got time to recover, and an early crash just means you buy cheap. The sequence only turns lethal the moment you're forced to take money out during a down stretch. Feel why? Because this is the part the always be fully invested crowd skips. When the market is down a third and you sell to raise $3,000, you're not selling the slice of your account you'd have sold at the top. You're selling more shares to scrape together those same $3,000, because each share is temporarily worth less. And those extra shares you handed over at the bottom, they never come back to recover with the rest. You sold them. The recovery happens without them. Same average return over the decade, completely different ending, purely because of when you were forced to sell. That's sequence risk, not the market went down. It's the market went down at the one moment your life reached into the account. And the only defense, and the only one, is having something else to spend, so you choose when you sell instead of letting the calendar choose for you. Hold that thought. It's the entire reason cash exists in a portfolio. Now watch it land on Marcus. Rewind to before he sold. He's 35, makes about $80,000 a year, which after his 401k and taxes leaves him a little over $4,000 a month to live on. He rents. He's got that $40,000 in the brokerage account he's proud of, and almost nothing in cash because he optimized it away. On a spreadsheet, Marcus is doing everything right. Then life arrives the way it actually does, all at once. His company runs layoffs and he's in them. Same week because the universe has a sense of humor. His car needs a repair to keep getting him to interviews. So he has to cover rent, groceries, his whole life, plus that car, for the 4 or 5 months it takes to land the next job. Call it $24,000 to get through. And where is Marcus's money? In the account that, because layoffs and crashes love to travel together, is right now down about a third. To raise his $24,000, he has to sell into the bottom. He doesn't want to. He has to. Rent is due. That's forced selling. And forced selling is the single most expensive thing that happens to ordinary investors. Not picking the wrong stock, not missing the hot thing. It's being made to sell good assets at a bad time because life showed up with a bill while the market was down. And here's something to file away because we come back to it. That same crash that's forcing Marcus to sell is somewhere handing somebody else the best prices in years. Every crash mints two people, a forced seller and a buyer. Hold that. It matters later. Notice what actually broke for Marcus. Not his investing, his picks were fine. Not the crash. Crashes recover. What broke is that he had no buffer between a bad week and his best assets. So the calendar got to choose the moment he sold. Sequence risk did the rest. Now here's why it's so much worse than the price tag. And this is the number I promised. When Marcus pulls $24,000 out at the bottom at 35, he doesn't just take a haircut on today's price, he pulls those dollars out of the compounding machine right when they had the most runway left. At the market's long-term rate, money roughly doubles every 7 years. Marcus is 35. Leave $24,000 alone until 65, and that's about 4 doublings. It grows to a little over $400,000 in future dollars. That's the full size of the hole if those dollars had simply stayed invested. Now I want to be straight with you, because the honest version is more convincing than the hyped one. Marcus didn't vanish, he got the next job, and over the years he clawed some of it back. So the right way to see the $400,000 isn't, he's exactly $400,000 poorer forever. It's the size of the headwind he created in one afternoon. Every dollar he rebuilds, he's rebuilding at 35 going on 45, with fewer doublings left in front of it. So a dollar replaced at 44 can't grow into what a dollar left alone at 34 would have. He spends years just paddling back to where the calendar already had him. Call it a 6-figure hole, not a fixed $400,000. But a 6-figure hole is still the most expensive thing that's ever happened in his portfolio. One forced sale. And almost nobody adds it up that way. Marcus sure didn't. The afternoon he clicked sell. So let me say the mechanism as plainly as I can. Cash is the asset that lets you choose when you sell everything else. Its return doesn't show up as a percentage. It shows up as the 6-figure hole that never gets dug. That's invisible on a spreadsheet, which is exactly why spreadsheet advice gets this wrong. That pile of protective cash has a name you've heard your whole life and probably never respected enough. Your emergency fund. There's a sharper name for what it really is, borrowed from the man who taught Warren Buffett. Ben Graham built his whole philosophy on 3 words: margin of safety. Never operate with 0 room for error, because the future will surprise you. Buffett draws it as a bridge. You build it to carry 30,000 pounds, then only drive 10,000-pound trucks across. The extra capacity isn't waste, it's the point. Your emergency fund is that margin of safety for your life. The room that turns a layoff or a blown transmission into a problem instead of a catastrophe. Graham used it to buy stocks below their worth. You're using it so life can't force your hand. If you don't have that fund yet, start there. Before cash becomes a portfolio strategy, it has to be a life buffer. This is insurance. The months of expenses kind you keep separate from everyday spending. It is not trying to grow. It's not an investment, and you have to stop grading it like one. Its entire job is to be the thing you spend so you never have to sell stocks at a loss to cover a surprise. The night the layoff hits, Marcus with the fund and Marcus without it are living 2 different lives. One is stressed about finding a job. The other is stressed about finding a job and watching his future get liquidated at the worst possible price to pay this month's rent. Same crash, same layoff. The only difference between those 2 men is one boring savings account. Now, Marcus is one guy and you are probably not Marcus. So find yourself in this because the mechanism doesn't care about your details, only your math. If your life costs more than $4,000 a month, your fund is just bigger. Run your number, not his. If you've got kids or anyone who eats when you eat, your income is load-bearing for more people. So lean to the long end, 6 months, not 3. If you own a home and you're proud of how far you've paid it down, notice the trap. Home equity is not a fire extinguisher. You can't sell a bathroom to cover 3 months of bills, and a home equity line can get frozen in exactly the crash you'd need it. So a paid-down house is a reason to keep cash, not skip it. And if you're near retirement or in it, sit up, because this is where sequence risk is most dangerous of all. When you stop earning and start withdrawing, you are forced to sell something every single year. That's not a one-time layoff, it's the whole plan. A bad crash in your first few retirement years with no cash to draw from instead can drain an account that would have lasted decades. For a retiree, a year or two of spending held in cash isn't conservative. It's the difference between the money lasting and not. So the number flexes. 3 months, 6, a couple years of spending if you're drawing down. The principal doesn't move an inch. Cash is the brakes, and you size the brakes to the car. And before you call it dead money, a high-yield account pays around 4% today. So you're not earning nothing, you're getting paid to hold the exact insurance that keeps you from selling at the bottom. Does 4% beat the market over 30 years? No, stocks at 10% win that race, and it's not close. But your emergency fund was never running that race. It's not trying to beat your stocks. It's trying to keep you in the game long enough for your stocks to win. Now, remember those two people every crash mints, the forced seller and the buyer? Up to here, all of this was cash playing defense. The fund keeps you from being the forced seller. And just as important, the panicked one. Because a buffer is what lets you sit still when your gut is screaming sell. When the market falls, every other asset you own is worth less. That's what a crash is. Your cash does the opposite, and there's a name for why. Optionality. Don't let the word scare you. It just means the payoff bends in your favor. The dollars don't grow. A dollar is still a dollar, but what each one can buy just jumped because everything went on sale, and the cost of being forced to sell went up. That's optionality. The worse the crash, the more your boring cash is quietly worth, not on paper and what it can do. It's the only thing in your portfolio whose usefulness climbs exactly when everything else falls. Traders pay good money for that shape. You get it by holding cash. But that same trait, cash being calm and ready when everything's on fire, has an offensive version, and it's the part wealthy investors quietly love. It's called dry powder. When the market is down a third and everyone else is frozen, terrified, or forced to sell like Marcus, the person sitting on a little extra cash gets to do the one thing nobody else can. They get to buy. The forced seller and the buyer are standing in the very same crash, and cash is the only thing that decides which one you are. And decide your buy rule in advance in writing while you're calm. If the market drops 20%, I move this much in. Because nobody can time a crash, and your judgment in the middle of one is the worst it will ever be. But this much is the part nobody fills in for you. So here's how to size it. 3 rules. 1. Dry powder is only what's left after your emergency fund is full and your regular investing keeps running. Never the fund, never the contributions you'd have made anyway. Pause your 401k to build a war chest, and you've just become a market timer. The exact mistake we're avoiding. 2. Size it to a buy you'll actually make. Pick the amount you could deploy with your hands shaking, not a number that looks bold in a spreadsheet and freezes you in a real crash. 3. Keep it small because dry powder isn't free. $1 waiting in cash earns 4% instead of 10%. The same drag we measured on the fund. Wait too long with too big a pile, and the waiting costs more than the dip ever saves. How you actually deploy it when the crash hits, all at once or in pieces as it falls further, is its own video. Here the rule is simpler. Set your trigger before you're scared, keep the pile small, and never raid the fund to feed it. So let's close the loop I opened. Did the cash version of Marcus end up poorer for holding all that trash? Or richer? Now you can see the arithmetic instead of taking my word for it. Cash Marcus pays for his fund in the spread, $24,000 earning 4% instead of 10%, while it sits about $1,400 a year of foregone growth. Call that the insurance premium, known tiny every year. The real Marcus paid a different price. $24,000 yanked out at the bottom at 35, then years of paddling to rebuild dollars with fewer doublings left in front of them, a six-figure headwind dug in a single afternoon. About $1,400 a year, known and small, against a six-figure hole you spend a decade climbing out of. That's not close. The worse asset produces the better outcome because its job was never to grow. Its job was to protect everything that does. That's the answer to the question I hung over the whole video. The cash didn't drag Marcus down. It was the only thing that could have let his stocks do their job. So here's what to do today, not someday. Figure out what 1 month of your life actually costs, what truly hits your account, not some ideal budget, and size your fund to your life. At least 3 months, more if people depend on you. More again if you own a home or you're drawing this money down in retirement. Get it into a high-yield savings account paying around 4%, separate from checking, a little out of reach, labeled in your head, do not touch unless it's a real emergency. That one move means the next layoff, the next blown transmission, the next surprise can never force your hand the way it forced Marcus's. And once that safety net is solid, only then write down your dry powder rule, so the next crash finds you as the buyer instead of the seller. You'll have changed your real relationship with risk, not by predicting anything, just by making sure life can never choose the moment you sell. If this reframed the cash in your account, if dead money just turned into the asset that protects everything else, that's exactly what I make this channel for. I'm Cole, and the whole job here is to find the human machinery under the advice everyone repeats, so you make calmer decisions when there's real money on the line. Marcus learned this the expensive way. You just got it for free. Subscribe so the next reframe finds you before the next crash does. And do me a favor in the comments. Tell me how many months of expenses you actually keep in cash right now, and whether this video just made you want to change that number. I read them, and I want to know where you really stand. I'm Cole. This is the Money Professor. I'll see you in the next one.